Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 19 of the Awkwardly Big Dice podcast. I am Dan, and this is Rob.
Hello.
Welcome to one and all to our, if I'm working out correctly, first podcast of the new year. If my calculations are correct, it'll be the first podcast of the new year. Everyone had a good New Year's, and thank you for coming to join us for another discussion on Dungeons and Dragons and all things TTRPG. They're mostly Dungeons and Dragons, but a lot of what we talk about could be applied to various games and whatnot. Before we get going, obviously check out the description below for all our socials, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and yeah, check out more of our shorts and all that sort of stuff.
Do all the things.
Do all the things, as Rob always says. Do all the things.
Yeah.
We are this week got our normal topics to talk about. We've got Monster of the Week provided by Rob, and then Spell of the Week as well provided by yours truly. And the order in which we go depends on the roll of the dice, as it does every week. And then after that, we're going to be kind of having like a character creation improv exercise thing where we're going to be talking about what characters we would play in the campaigns that we run as DMs, as we are commonly DMs.
Yes.
As I said last week, we no longer do news at the opening just because anything we say is usually just untimely by the time it's on the internet. So we will jump off straight away by rolling our dice to decide which topic goes first. I am going to use green. You're using turquoisey.
Turquoisey sparkles.
Turquoisey sparkles. Right, let's roll.
Ooh.
The highest number I've had in a while, I think.
Oh, really? I got an 11.
I got a 13.
Oh,
I win again.
You're having a winning streak now. That's not like you.
Well, now I won't. You've jinxed it. It's over for me now. I'm done. I've got DM tomorrow. You've ruined all my luck.
Good. That's what you get.
It was good for you because you're playing. Not for me. I want those fights to last long and to make them feel worth it. I'm sure they will either way.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. We've got Joe's dice.
Yes. I think I will go first again with spell, because
all right.
Last week we also did something very similar with the monster that I know you've picked, so it might go on a bit longer, like the last one did. So this I'm going to use spell first, get that, and then we can do the monster /
yes
monsters. So my spell of the week this week is one I've used myself, and when I saw it in a list of spells, I was like, I'm going to talk about that one, and that is Death Ward. Death Ward is a 4th level abjuration spell, which basically means defensive magic for the uninitiated. It is a touch spell, which are actually in the minority. I believe there aren't a lot of touch-based spells. This is a touch-based spell. But basically what it does is it is a bit like having the orc feature that is when you get knocked down, you pop back up with 1 hit point. But you can use a 4th level spell slot to give that to somebody for 8 hours without concentration, which is actually my favorite part of this
oh yeah
spell.
It's great part.
And if that person who is was that?
Sorry, no fancy material components.
No fancy material components. It's simply just a verbal and semantic, which means no materials. It's also good. You think, all right, well, sure, that's great. Someone goes down. Then what if we start using finger death, power word kill, and those sort of things that can just instant kill somebody? Doesn't matter. This just prevents them from dying. It acts as though nothing has actually happened. is also really cool. I use this spell since I was a cleric, one of the classes that can cast Death Ward. And I recommend it based on my experience as a cleric. But clerics, paladins, and artificers of the alchemist variety, warlocks of the undead variety, are also
Yeah.
capable of casting this. I would say that I would imagine that a warlock is unlikely to choose it based over other options. Um,
Yeah,
it's good,
probably.
but I can't see it beating out some of the other options that are available to a warlock. But an alchemist artificer might choose it. However, they want to flavor it. But again, there are some better things. I really just kind of liked it as a cleric because it was something that was a buff spell that wasn't like required them to roll some extra dice. It wasn't like healing or anything like that. It was just something that would it would keep our poor little bard alive because it was pretty much I think exclusively him that I casted on.
Yeah, I think you are. Oh, poor Duncan and his corn being his dump stat. I think
Mm,
Chris learned a lesson
he did.
towards the end of that campaign about character creation.
Yeah. So for
It
all
is.
those,
It's a great.
gone.
Go on. I was
Oh,
going to say it is a great spell. Speaking as the DM,
mm,
like it really, um, yeah, it just give you that extra turn to try and do something. It's very good.
I would say that if yeah, if you know there's a squishy player in your group, it's a good idea for your cleric to prepare it that day. Obviously, it's the great thing, as one of the great things about playing like a cleric or a druid, and to a certain extent a wizard, but your clerics and your druids is that you prepare your spells. Or paladins do as well. Um,
Yes, and artificers.
and artificers. The prepared classes are something that's good about them is the ability to experiment
Yeah, the
with the test.
versatility.
Because you soon start to realize that some spells that sound really good aren't as good as you think they are because they just don't get used. They're either very situational
Yeah,
or they just don't quite work how you think they would work. Um, but I remember there was some spells that I kept. One of the spells I was going to talk about this week was one that I kept for ages. I considered it, and it might give away how I pick my spells if I was to say the word dawn. And this is called Death Ward
alphabetically.
alphabetically. I look through the list alphabetically. I don't pick them off. I look through a list. It's alphabetical. But I saw Dawn, and I was like, oh, we have a really funny story around Dawn. So maybe I'll do it another time. I'm not going to talk about Dawn. But it was
You're
one of
never
the.
going to use Zephyr Strike.
Hmm?
You're never going to use Zephyr Strike.
And then
Sorry,
because
carry on.
it's alphabetical, yeah, it's at the end. Well, um, but
Yeah, sorry, go on.
well, I wouldn't. You can go even like I'm not going to use time stop either, am I? Because it's the T still. Like, no. I
No.
don't. By the way, I don't pick my actual character's spells based on that. It is simply just the ones I use for the podcast.
I know, I know.
Okay.
It just makes me laugh.
Yeah,
Carry on.
yes, I can tell. But yeah, there may be spells that you don't want to use as a cleric that actually might be better than what you thought they were. When I was a wizard before he was untimely slaughtered by one of his own party members. Um, he uh, all is forgiven. But before that, I never really thought about using things that were like like darkness. Um, because you go, oh yes, spell doesn't really do any damage, and I can see so many ways that people can just, as a player, how you would get out of it. But then sometimes you've got to remember that the DM isn't the player and isn't like
Yeah,
gonna kind of metagame into those things. Although the DM might come up with a more interesting way for you to play with the rules of darkness. Because we had a use for darkness as well. Another D spell. I don't know why the D spells are in my head right now. I don't know what's going on. It's D spells, like D's nuts. But back to Death Ward.
Yeah.
I recommend that anybody who, again, yes, has a squishy player in the group, use it. If you are of high enough level to have multiple 4th level spell slots, you can cast it on multiple people.
Yeah.
Which ultimately, what's the max 4th levels you'll have? Max number.
3. I want to say.
So you could
Tell you what.
depending on the size of your party, if you've got a 3-man party, you've got them all covered. Gotta whip out the old player's handbook.
We will consult the rules.
Who consult the rules? Check
The
the
sorcerer.
home.
3. I was right. Yeah.
Hmm.
You hit 3 at level 9, and you stay there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously, you keep gaining higher level spell slots. I could just go on the floor. But yeah, I think one of my favorite things about Death Ward is it's a few things that kind of create an effect that make me want to pick it over certain other spells. Like you said, it's not concentration. It lasts 8 hours, so you can cast it if you know you're going into a dungeon, like Castle Ravenloft, for example. You might come up against some pretty nasty things in there. Strahd himself.
Yeah.
You know that there is a good chance that you might get absolutely curb stomped, or prosthetic leg stomped, like old Emmerich
Don't
did.
bring back the pain.
That was such a great moment. But anyway,
I
like so,
remember it so fondly. It's so fondly.
whenever I've played clerics, although I'm not, I'm no Ross. I'm not a cleric master. I've not played every other cleric there is. I have played support classes a couple of times, or other classes that also like to do a little bit of setup. So one of the first things you really don't want to have to do too much is think, right, which support spell am I going to set up first in this situation, which is going to be the best one for me to do? Is it time um, to bring out Spirit Guardians if I want to be an offensive support, or is it time to um, there's a spell that reminds me of Death Ward, which has a different name, and you used it in the fight against Strahd, which gave everybody instant bounce back on their turn and resistance to necrotic damage.
Yeah. It was one of the auras.
Yeah, and like it's what, like, do I want to cast something like that? But if you've got a Death Ward up on someone already, you feel that you've already done a little bit of your job to protect the party, so you feel a little bit of that pressure has gone off you a bit. It's an interesting spell as well because there's no real reason, if you've cast it way before an encounter even happens, there's no reason the DM should even know it's there. Obviously the DM is going to know it's there, but
Yeah.
you're a DM, you don't matter. You should have things act accordingly, unless someone was scrying on the party. But yeah, it's a really good spell, really useful. You just switch it on, similar to Mage Armor and so forth and so on.
The one you're talking about is Aura of Life. Right?
Aura of Life, yeah, great aura. But again, it's that kind of like first turn of the fight, pressure to perform in the kind of like the most efficient way if you're being a support class. I do feel that pressure a little bit more, I think. Whereas with a more damage focused class, you're like, I'll start with a cantrip and we'll see how it goes. You have a little bit less worry. So yeah, I love this spell. It's a great spell.
Yeah, great because it lasts 8 hours as well. By the way, that is like, it means when you get up, you cast it on somebody, and then you move on. It's a bit like your mage armors. You tap somebody when you get up in the morning, and then there's 8 hours that you're on the road. They got it. Unless something happens
There
outside of those
is
8 hours, in which case you're a bit. But most
there's one
most of the
scary
time.
thing though. There's one scary thing though, in my opinion. Depending on how squishy the player that you've cast it on is.
Mm.
I mean, if you put it on a barbarian, then it's probably what happened. But if I as the DM then got Duncan down to 1 HP, Duncan's max HP wasn't that high.
No.
If I then attacked him in one go with something quite damaging, like maybe Blight or a higher level spell, there is a chance at permadeath, so you do have to be aware when you're acutely aware when you're on 1 HP. You've not died, so use that chance to maybe get the hell out.
Yes, yes, yeah. If you've already bounced back from Death Ward and you've got that HP, yeah, use it as an opportunity to get the fuck out.
For those that are not aware, the rule I am referring to is that if you go into negative your max HP, you are instant killed.
Yes, you are.
Take back seats.
Which is always a good idea to work out. We don't even have to work it out. It's literally you had the little dash, the minus next to your own. But when you get hit,
Yeah.
work out what it is. Because don't be a spoil sport. Because
No,
don't do that. The DM will usually be aware. Like they'll be like, all right, that guy's already really in a bad way. If I hit him, there's a good chance he might insta kill him. And if that happens, yeah.
I nearly did that to one of my players with Strad in the other campaign.
Hmm.
Um, he had they're only a low level at the minute. He had max HP 18, and he was on 2 HP, and I did like 16 damage to him.
And they wiped
So
him.
that was yeah, he nearly got one banged, bless him. But it was a good stressful moment.
Yeah.
Tension, we like tension.
Yes, tension. Yes, we do. But I don't have anything more to add about our friend Death Ward. I highly recommend it. Yes, we haven't shown us another spell that we dislike. I generally choose spells I like. I was considering a cantrip that I dislike, but it's too far down the alphabet for me to bother with it. Um,
What that is now.
it's a cantrip. Well, I'll save it for another day. So what we'll do is we'll move on from Death Ward. We'll rattle on about something when we have nothing to say. Only
No.
good things. So we'll go on to this week's Monster of the Week. Over to you, Rob.
Yeah, so this week, it took me a while to find these because I was like, oh, it's Monster of the Week. It's my choice to do Monster of the Week today. And I just remembered this collection of humanoid creatures that I saw a long time ago, and I was scouring Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, thinking I'm sure they were in here. They weren't. They were in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. I've chosen the Inquisitors. They are known as the Inquisitor of the Mind of Fire, Inquisitor of the Tome, and Inquisitor of the Sword. Hopefully you see their pictures up on the screen right now.
Yeah.
And I remember reading these a long time ago, and thinking, oh, these are Grey Knights from Warhammer 40k. These are really cool. These are basically the Inquisition / Grey Knights. I used to collect those many, many years ago. Sold my army a long time ago. But I just always really liked the idea of the sort of psionics that the Githyanki did. Never been a huge fan, and I'll be honest, I'm a little bit more of a fan now. I've played Baldur's Gate, but never been a huge fan of Githyanki as a race themselves. I always feel like I'd only want to play that in some sort of big epic Mind Flayer versus Githyanki campaign. Other
Some
than
sort of
that, they always feel a
spelljammery
little
thing.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, they always feel a little bit out of theme.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Inquisitor of the Mind are, of the Fire Mind, of the Tome, of the Sword. I think, what were they called? What's their actual name? I read
So
it here.
the Olmist Inquisition is what they belong to.
Olmist, yes, that's the one, the Olmist Inquisition. I'd read it a long time ago. They dwell in the city of Malitane, somewhere I'll be honest I've never heard of. I'm not always
Apparently,
as
it is near the original location of Barovia.
yeah. These guys used to chill with Strahd back before Strahd was the first ever vampire
Mhm.
and fell to darkness. And the leader of the Inquisitors was so heartbroken by one of his besties fall from grace that he focused his Inquisition into not only stomping out evil, but also stomping out the seed of evil that can dwell in them. Um, Basically, they're like psionic knights.
Yeah.
Some have got more melee focused abilities, others have got more spellcastery focused abilities. So they're very much designed to be used together. They've got challenge level 8 across the board. The one that the only one with maybe a bit more HP and an armor class is the sword based one, as you would expect. They've got some absolutely insane abilities. So let's start with the sword one.
For it.
Classic longsword melee attack. Multiple attacks, normal longsword rules, but then they do a bunch of extra force damage. Um, they have psionic spells, ones that would really be thematic to this sort
Yeah.
of thing. Detect magic, detect thoughts, dispel magic, sending, and then one a day, dimension door, fly, greater
Yeah.
invisibility. I think what really makes the melee characters stand out from the pack is its bonus action, blink step, infinite uses. Obviously, one bonus action per turn, but
Yeah.
doesn't run out. Um, it can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space it can see. So you're not going to be getting away from this anytime soon
No.
unless you do some serious movement. Um,
Not too dissimilar
they've also
to like the phase step that the legend that we talked about last time. Get as a bonus action. There's recharges. This is obviously an infinite use thing.
yes, yes, and yeah, so you're just going to struggle to really get away from these guys. They've got charm immunity and fear immunity. They really hone themselves to combat the evil that they hunt. They have an ability I've just actually noticed, metabolic control at the
Hmm.
start of each of its turns. The Inquisitor regains 10 hit points and can end one condition on itself provided the Inquisitor has at least one hit point. And there's no way to switch that off like there is with the likes of vampires and things that you may do, like trolls, where you do fire damage to them, um, or radiant damage, or make them stand in running water or
Hmm.
sunlight. Um, that's just going to happen every turn.
Yeah.
Do they all have that?
I
No, they
don't.
don't all have that.
Oh. No, because
So the
I think that if I remember rightly, that is the core idea of the sword, the order of sword within the Old Mist Inquisition. Is the idea is that they have you turn that psychic power inwards on themselves, um, and to sort of empower their own bodies.
yes, yeah, yeah. Then we've got the Inquisitor of the Tome, much more as you kind of would expect, a spellcasting focus. They still use a longsword. They still get multi-attack, so they've still got the ability to hit really hard. Um, they also have Force Bolt though, which they can use instead of the longsword. It just says the Inquisitor attacks twice, so they can do a mix of both, or both
Mhm.
ranged or both melee. 120-foot range, 4d8 plus 4 force damage, and you can knock it 10 feet away. So being hit by that twice, that's going to sting a little bit. They've got a a reaction called telekinetic deflection. In response to being hit by an attack roll, the Inquisitor can increase its AC by 4 against the attack. If this causes the attack to miss, the attacker is hit by the attack instead. Just obviously they're going to use that when, like players use shield, they're going to
Mm.
use it when it's going to work. Let's be honest. There's an ability this one has, Inquisitor of the Tome, called Implode. It is on a recharge of 4 to 6. So I don't think it's going to be quite the Vegeta explosion that the name sounds like it's going to be. But
Mhm.
each creature in a 20-foot radius sphere centered on a point the Inquisitor can see within 120 feet of itself must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw, or take 68 plus 4 force damage. That's 6d8, not 68.
Mhm.
Um, Force damage, although it's not a million miles away from that kind of number. And be knocked and be knocked prone, and move to the unoccupied space closest to the sphere's center. Large and smaller objects that aren't being worn or carried in the sphere automatically take the damage and are similarly moved. So you just absolutely vortexing everything into one spot.
Mhm. Like a
Then you,
sudden gravity well, isn't it? It's like it pulls everything
yes,
towards
yeah,
the
yeah.
center.
And then we've got the spell casting. They have some slightly different spells, but on a similar theme again with
Mhm.
detect magic, dispel magic, levitate, mage armor, mage hand sending, Otoluk's resilient sphere, and telekinesis. So there's some pretty similar choices there, and the same sort of condition immunities, that sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Well, this one is very much your. It's kind of like your wizard or your warlock,
Yeah,
because it's got something like it's got the force bolt, which reads very much like the old
like an Eldritch
Eldritch
blast.
Blast.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be psionics. It's psychic power rather than magic, I suppose. Or I guess is it one of the same.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And with that, it's I think these guys are really really cool. I think there's probably, because I love things like the psionic fighter as well. You can really see the
Mm.
inspiration for that from these guys as well.
Psi warrior, Psi warrior.
Yes, yeah, the fighter subclass called Psi Warrior, and there's a rogue one as well. A big fan of them both.
Yes.
And then there's one final guy called the Inquisitor of the Mind Fire. So when I read up on this, apparently there's more about burning you from the inside, um, using psychic energy. Again, um, similar sort of stat block, similar sort of immunities. We won't go over them all. Multi-attack, the Inquisitor attacks twice with its silver longsword or uses its Mind Fire twice, so it has an ability called Mind Fire. The Inquisitor targets one creature it can see within 120 feet. Target must succeed on a DC 15 intelligence saving throw or take 3d8 plus 4 psychic damage and be stunned until the start of the Inquisitor's next turn. To have the ability to stun two player characters with
Mm-hmm.
a bit of luck, that's pretty brutal. Um,
The
so I
great.
maybe wouldn't use it as much as that.
Mhm. I think the great thing as well is that is an intelligence save as well. Because I look at DC
Yeah,
15 and I go, well, okay, in my current group, there's a good chance a large quantity of you guys can pass. And a lot of times because I make you guys do a lot more wisdom saves than anything else.
yeah,
Um, I'll go, oh, DC 15 ain't that tough. But then you go, oh, intelligence. Well, I know that pretty much all but one of the party are gonna struggle with that. The other one who's not is gonna be surprisingly Joe should be the one who's actually pretty good at that. Um,
yeah. With his arcane trickster.
with Arcane Trickster, exactly.
Yeah, I know. I think Fitz would probably struggle to save against that.
I would
I don't
definitely
think.
target you with if something required intelligence. I think I don't bother charming you no more because
Well, no,
much
that
like
would be a
with these guys,
mistake.
you're basically immune to charm. Yeah,
Yes, as he should be. He's so charming himself.
yeah. Except
Um,
it's not uh, an organic natural ability that Fitz has. It's because he has an item.
yes, it is because he has an iron.
These guys just have mastered psionic energy so well that they're able to protect their minds against frighten and charm.
Fitz has mastered bullshit. It's just
As
the
has
way it
Rob
is.
as well. Yes.
He is actually scared all the time.
Yeah.
He's like the Hulk. He's angry all the time. Fitz is scared all the time. That's why he's immune to fear, because he's full of it. But anyway, they have again, similar themed spells, slightly different. They've got at will be able to cast Arcane Eye, Calm Emotions, Detect Magic and Detect Thoughts, Dispel Magic, Sending and Suggestion. So this is definitely the biggest list of at will spells. And
Mhm.
then once a day each, Modify Memory and Mass Suggestion. And it's the modified memory that really makes me think of Grey Knights because of the old um, adage of killing all the Imperial Guard that saw them and wiping the memories of the Space Marines that saw them,
Mhm.
unless they're Space Wolves, in which case that ended up in a pretty horrible fight.
Yeah,
Um,
a big fight, big war.
they've got an ability that recharges on a 5 to 6 called the Inquisitor's Command. So I'm going to be expecting some control-based ability
Mhm.
here. Each creature of the Inquisitor's choice that it can see within 60 feet. That's each creature, so it's going to be affecting everybody pretty much within 60 feet of it. Must succeed on a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw. So Fitz might be all right
Okay.
against this. Or be charmed. Oh, he's definitely all right against it. Until the
Mhm.
start of the Inquisitor's next turn. On the charmed target's turn, the Inquisitor can telepathically control the target's move, action, or both. When controlled this way, the target can take only one attack or dash action. That would be pretty mental. Like if nearly everybody on the party lost apart from one player, so then the rest of the players on their turn just turn on that player. Yeah,
Right.
that's no wonder it only recharges on a 5 to 6. That's pretty scary. A wisdom saving throw is definitely easier to beat. I feel more people have got both proficiency against it, and there are just not that many intelligence-based classes, just wizards and artificers. So it's going to be harder to pull off. But if you're targeting everybody, you don't really need it to hit everybody. You just one or two people, and you're going to be golden. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's the Inquisitors of Ulmist, or the Ulmist Inquisition.
Indeed is. Yeah, if anyone ever wants to read the backstory, you can check out Richten's Guide to Ravenloft would be the key one, and it does give you their whole like lore thing that is in the description. It's fairly interesting, at least to understand that these are people who've been doing it longer than old Straddy Boy's been a vampire, so they should be pretty good at what they do.
It's a
Um,
long time.
it is. I feel like I have seen these before, but never checked them out. Like took the time
Yeah.
to read through them. And now, sort of in preparation for this podcast, I did have a good sort of read through. And I'm definitely thinking of ways I can use them because I was like, these are. There aren't a lot of really like good sort of decent sort of. I know we don't use challenge rating, but for just a way of explaining their sort of level, like an 8 challenge rating that these guys have got, but you don't get many humanoid that are above that are at, or anything really in that level space that is good.
No, you
Um,
really don't.
like I remember when like champion was like one of the top things you could get for ages, and it was just like, oh, you gotta make every single human that they fight is just a champion because champions were decent, and then they started introducing different things in the different books. Um, but yeah, I am definitely gonna think of a way to use these. I've got few ideas already, but uh,
These are literally who I think of when you tell me about the Watchers.
yeah, the Watchers of Me is one of my possibilities, yeah, for using them.
Yeah, yeah. And I've, like if I was a DM thinking about how am I going to use these, there's definitely depending on the party, a few
Hmm.
ways I could think to use them.
Hmm.
Um, have the party perhaps being a little bit murder hobo-ish and need to run into the old, what does it you call it, Dan? Uncle
A couple
consequences?
consequences, yeah.
Well, they could have some uncles and aunties with psionic abilities. Have been tracing some acts of evil across the land. Perhaps perhaps a shopkeeper's store was burnt down simply because he refused to give a discount.
Mm.
Wouldn't be the first time I'd seen that happen. Perhaps somebody who was not really a nice person was maybe dealt with a little bit too harshly, or accidentally killed, or a tavern keeper, a barkeeper was accidentally had his throat slit by the rogue because they didn't realize you could do non-lethal attacks and just rolled a crit with a sneak attack and it was just an NPC militant. Yeah, perhaps that happened. these would be great to send against your party. You could really kind of story it really well, have them gathering evidence, have the party notice um, people watching them in a crowd with glowing blue eyes
Mhm.
and then disappear from sight. Um, Perhaps they have been questioned by them before but had their memories modified. I can think of
Perhaps.
so many good ways to use
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Um,
I have. It's a weird one because now that I'm thinking about using, that I want to use these guys, um, I can think of loads of ways to do it. And I'm like, I should have probably thought about this before we ran our current adventure. Um, but then I have law reasons not to worry about it too much, so that's
yeah,
fine. But yes, recommend everyone check them out. Again, we cover a lot of things from things like the Monster Manual, or I guess nowadays it's the Mordecai's Multiverse Mad Monsters and Things, whatever that book's called.
mum,
Mom, that one, yeah, the Mom one.
yeah,
But this one's from a book that isn't as common as some
yeah,
of the
not as
others.
well known.
So I do suggest you'll go check it out. That is the Inquisitors. You can simply, if you use D&D Beyond or something akin to it, I'm sure typing in Inquisitor will just find them because it's what it worked for me to find them.
Mm.
But the
Don't spend
book,
half an hour searching in night because it will find them.
no, you just find knights, the knights. That's what you'll find
I was trying so hard to find these and I couldn't.
to figure out what they were.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of them. I was like, there's some sort of psionic knight. That's all I knew.
Yeah, I don't know how. Like, if yeah, it's such a, and it doesn't add D&D Beyond never helps you with that stuff anyway. It doesn't
No, D&D
tag
Beyond
things
is awful.
correctly. If you're using it, so that you can just easily, it's like you should just be able to type in some like psionic warrior, and this thing should be tagged with those phrases, and it would bring them up, but it doesn't work like that. Well, we're not web designers. What do we know? Um, but we'll move on from Monster of the Week, as we've called it. It's weird to call these guys monsters, but in the terminology of Dungeons and Dragons, they are monsters.
Yes.
We will move on from that, and we'll move over to our next topic, uh, which is, I don't have a really distinct title for it, but basically, as DMs, what sort of characters would we play in our games, in the games that we run as DMs, if we were to play? Uh, I guess I can talk about two campaigns since I've created two campaign worlds that we've run in. That's the world we generally refer to as Nuri, though that's the name of the continent, and of course
Yep.
Stormir, though that is again the name of the city that it's set in. But again, that is all that's left. So yes, that would make sense that we run the name after that. Um, I can talk about those, and Rob is going to be talking about Strahd and your original sort of demi-plane desert campaign.
Yes, which was actually named Ixalaria. But I think I accidentally stole most of that name from perhaps a Magic the Gathering set. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I'm sure I've heard of. So I'm sure since then I've gone. Oops, did I accidentally
Did I
steal a
steal
name?
that? Perhaps
It
I
wasn't a
did.
desert place though, so it don't count.
No.
I stole most of my campaign from inspired by
Mhm.
June and other similar desert-based things.
Well, I'm
But
happy to begin. I'll begin with the current one since it's probably a little easy for me to do based on that we're currently
yeah,
running Stormir. And also because I have my own little story, I guess I can tell about that because I have created an NPC that is the character I would play,
oh, I know who this is straight away. Carry on.
called Detective Perrin Sionadel. Like that is who it is. I created him ages ago, because I wanted to create a wizard detective, and then I got to play Strahd, and I did play wizard detective. I did it. I got to bring him into reality. I changed lots of things to make Emmerich. Emmerich was reborn. He was basically looked like a zombie detective, whereas old Perrin is an elf. And my initial thought on the whole thing is definitely, I would just play someone like Perrin. But of course, Perrin would not work in the current campaign we're running, the current adventure, I guess. The campaign world, yes, but in the adventure that we're running, no. He's a detective. He's a police officer. He wouldn't be running with criminals as much as he has technically kind of run with you guys already. So if I was going to do it, and it was,
Puts up with us.
Hmm?
He puts up with us.
He put up with me, though you haven't seen him for a little while in real life time, not in game time. You've not seen him for like a day and a bit, I think. 2 days maybe.
3 days, 2 or 3. No, we had the whole day for Susie's thing. It's been 3 days, I reckon. 2, 3.
2
It's some
maybe.
time.
There's been some time. 2, 3 days. You might be right with the 3 actually. It's been some time, yes. He's been busy. You've been around. Some of you are busy. But I like wizards, as we've discussed before, so I always want to play a wizard. And I think for me as well, like I created Stormare to be this high magic place, lots of spellcasters, lots of magic taking place, and I would just want to play with that and just be a spellcaster. So I probably I wouldn't want to be a wizard because I'm so recent, even though really it wasn't recent, but it feels recent that I recently played Emmerich and he was a wizard. So I'd maybe step away from wizard, probably head towards like a sorcerer maybe.
Yeah.
Go finally get to play that clockwork sorcerer that I wanted to play. With regards to a character, well, sorcerers are what inborn magic from the blood, right? Something that
Yeah.
they're able to will out of themselves and use due to their general charismatic influence over what in my world is called the continuum or the magical continuum, but is the weave in most D&D worlds.
Yeah.
So you got to go on someone who's got a certain charisma about them, which would be the same if I also chose my second choice would probably be a bard, and they're also charisma based. I think if I was a sorcerer, it's probably going to be not too dissimilar to Luke's character Phoenix, though not as homicidal.
Good.
It would probably be one of those where he's from he descends from some sort of magical line, bloodline. There's loads of little like backstory stuff because I know the world so well that I would use to connect him with the clockwork stuff, to make that a thing. And I would probably choose him from either one of the noble houses or like a descended from one of those noble houses of that world. So the sort of race gets a little more specific with that. So
Yeah.
I might go either something like a Goliath or a Furbolg and related to House Cragsaw, who are the giant house.
Yeah.
Something like that. And you don't really see too many sort of sorcerer Goliaths. So it could be quite
No, you
interesting.
don't.
Also, would really be a great opportunity for me to do the Skyrim accent again, since I've introduced
Yeah.
Goliaths in the world, have that accent.
Yeah. With Sven and his brothers or
Was-
cousins or whatever they were.
so yeah, Sven's cousins, but they were all brothers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 3 brothers.
Good
Um,
lads.
yeah, they were. And if I was playing a bard, I would definitely go very much like down a kind of Johnny Silverhand, uh, rebel rocker,
Yeah.
rocker boy type thing. Not too far from what Joe's kind of doing, but as an actual punk, opposed to Joe's kind of homeless vagabond vibes.
Almost pervert vibes.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's Joe more than Paul Vigil, to be honest.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Bit of a self-insert in a couple of ways.
um,
What race would you go for that? Because of
ooh,
the Pixie Bar being the kind of rocker bar, would you go for a smaller race or?
that'd be kind of cool. I mean, there was some pretty cool stuff about obviously having wings that I've seen a particular member of our party who is currently present in this podcast use. Wings are beneficial, so you could go for like a fairy. I'm not a Harrigan guy, I don't really care for Satyr or Harrigan or as two the sort of fey races.
I
So
don't mind.
yeah, it feels a bit furry-ish to be a Harrigan, and then too close to being a fairy, and and Satyr. I think, but they've not both got something that allows them to jump. They've got like mirthful leap is what the Satyr have,
Yeah,
and then I think Harrigan can jump really well too. Um,
yeah.
so I probably would go for something like the fairy, um, something like that. If not a fairy, I might even go for like a, a dark elf, like a drow.
Or maybe a ladrin or something like that.
Yeah, maybe or a ladrin
We were
or
talking
some.
about them last week.
Yeah, we did. Could be pretty cool. I think if I go drow, he's going to be some sort of like it comes out of being death metal or something that he that he does. Whereas I think a ladrin's a little more likely to be more
if,
sort of old
if you
school
went
Sex
drow,
Pistols punk.
drow would be great if you were going to be just that kind of American emo boy,
Mm.
snake bite piercings, that swiffy
He's doing that thing with the hair all
fringe.
the time, isn't that? You're
Yeah,
flicking the hair.
and it always gets lost and has to shout, "Where are you?"
So bad.
Maybe that's his thing. Maybe he has locate person or whatever the spell's called.
Yeah, it's called Tom the Short.
Maybe he's a dwarf and he's called Tom the Thick. A Duragar for the keeping the underground and darkness theme.
But yeah, I think Bard would be go down the punk route.
Yeah,
Um, Definitely some sort of really arrogant, full of himself rocker boy who thinks he can change the world. But that sort of Johnny Silverhand and the cynical side of him that he's got, which works perfectly for me because I happen to be a little bit of a cynic, so it works. Um, what about you? What world do you wish to give us an insight to with a character creation?
Hmm. So with Strahd,
Mhm.
I'm always in two minds, and I discussed this with some of my players who are currently knee deep in the campaign.
Mhm.
Um, the everybody knows it's a gothic horror campaign, so the lure is to either play something gothic horror related, like you did with Emmerich, because he
Mhm.
was basically a zombie detective, gave me Fallout Ghoul vibes.
Yes.
Well, that's the way I
As
talked a
we,
lot like this, didn't I? He did that, so whole thing
yeah,
the entire time,
yeah,
even if you have a sore throat. Fantastic.
yeah. It's commit. I valued the commitment for sure. Or not necessarily something like in and of itself gothic horror, but something gothic horror themed, like a Van Helsing or Van
Mm.
Richten style character, like a blood hunter, or some maybe like I always said maybe if I knew I was gonna be hunting creatures of the dark, I would play the Sun Soul Monk, because why would you not want to be able to throw light from your hands, that sort of thing? But then the idea is that maybe I'm being a little bit meta with that, and
Mhm.
I know I'm approaching with a bit of an advantage. Um,
You know, do what I did with
so I
Tor, can't you? Because with Tor, I knew going in that light would be a
strong,
useful thing. Like, but
yeah,
I had a whole reason that I knew that you'd mentioned the Morning Lord had some connection to the whole thing. So I was like, you know what, that works for me. I like
yeah,
the morning. I like the
exactly.
Morning Lord.
So I think what I would want to do is I would probably go for either a blood hunter or a Sun Soul Monk. I would be wanting something that could make a lot of quick attacks, because I'm feeling that vibe currently anyway,
Mm.
and have done for a little while. I've played a couple of Great Weapon Mastery characters, so I feel I've done that a bit much now, and I'm feeling maybe dual wield or monk with a lot of attacks. I think for Strahd specifically, I would really want to, and this is just a bit of advice anyway, link in with the DM, have a good chat about how I would be, because with Barovia, we all know it's a domain of dread, and you all know once you're in, you're not getting out. Like it's fairly common knowledge is that typically the same for most domains of dread,
Yeah, it's usually
where the campaign
something that
is set in
you
that.
that your DM establishes quite early on with your players in
Yes.
your session zeros. This is going to happen, so
Yeah.
don't create a character that it's going to screw over.
Yeah, so like that's where with the Strahd, I suppose why I'm dwelling on that a little bit also as well as the character is that I'd want to make sure I was doing it justice and doing it right, and I wasn't going right. This character knows they're going to Barovia, or this character just so happens to be a prolific vampire hunter who's going to Barovia. Also, the word prolific is a bad choice there because you're going to be starting somewhere between level 1 and level 3, so that also has to make sense as well.
Yeah.
So I think probably go one of those two choices. If it was the Blood Hunter, it would be I've forgotten what it's called, the ghost hunting one, where you can become an astral yourself or a spirit form, and you can get radiant attacks. I do quite like the vibe of that. And instead of focusing more on being a vampire hunter, I will probably go with a paranormal investigator.
You talk about the Ghost Slayer, Order of the Ghost Slayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that one. The kind of I would probably flavor it actually quite similar to how Goldie was originally supposed to be flavored because I suggested oh, what's the name of the god? The god of the scales.
Oh, Kellenvor.
Kellenvor would probably be a god that they're not a paladin or a cleric, but you still can have somebody who's religious. They would probably be a knight of Kellenvor or a disciple of a sect from Kellenvor. That's how it would work in the kind of blood hunter order. And he didn't know why. He didn't know what he would be doing. But he would have been sent on a mission by his high priest or something like that. So he didn't know he was going to Barovia, but there were divinations that had happened to put him here, to put him into this party's way, so that he could join up with some other people, and something would happen. And I'd probably go for that vibe. And I think I might be boring and make him human, just because human fits Barovia well. That or I do like Dampiers, but that might be a bit on the nose.
Yeah, maybe. Just a bit.
Not sure what else I'd play. Maybe I don't know. I'm liking Dragonborn at the minute. They're pretty cool.
Dragonborn are pretty cool.
There's no real reason for that though.
Okay, I'll go again. So Nuri, right? So Nuri is suppose we never. I don't know if I've ever described the sort of word. So Stormy that I just talked about. We've talked about many times on previous episode and discussed the sort of urban campaign. It's got like a Magitech world, high magic. Nuri is more of your classical D&D world, sort of medieval-y vibes, but with a lot of Chinese, ancient China sort of influence, ancient Chinese influence.
Yeah.
Looking at mostly like Ming Dynasty, Yuan Dynasty, thereabouts. So technically, I think by European standards, that's after the medieval period, but it doesn't matter. Historicity or historical accuracy is not something people go to worry about in D&D, but it's a little more of a traditional sort of D&D world in that part. Lots of traveling, lots of adventuring around the world. If
Lots
else,
more space.
lots of space, yes. Lots of opportunity for dungeon diving and and we played it in a rather than the sort of Stormare campaign, which is a little more sandbox, and it's kind of just down to the players to decide what they want to do and to lead the story and to make. They're not getting spoon fed everything. Nuri was a little more on the rails. Wasn't fully railroaded. I did leave a lot of choice and freedom to people, but there was always this is the answer to your question, or this is something that is how I see you guys get into it. This is how I think it's going to happen. To be fair, I got really good at predicting you guys by the end, so I knew exactly what you were going to do. To the most
Helps
part,
that we were mostly good as well. Like
yes.
I think a good party is always that a little bit more predictable.
I think it's a
Um,
lot more suited for that world to be a good party.
yes, be champions of the realm sort of thing.
Yes. If I was going to play in that world, it's still set. It's not high magic. It's not low magic. It's certainly, I would argue, high fantasy, but it's not as high magic. It's in the middle.
I'd say mid-high because like you don't restrict classes at all. Like
No.
you're happy for us to play whatever as long as we can
Yeah.
make it make sense with backstories.
I would. That said, however, I would probably not even sure I would go down the magic route. Again, I always love wizards. Would always love to play a wizard. I purposely avoid wizard because it's the obvious choice for me. So I try to go something else. I would probably maybe play a rogue, or a fighter, something like that. We did have a rogue for a time when we played that.
Yes.
So obviously, if we were playing with the exact same party, then we wouldn't have chosen a rogue. But I think I would have liked to play almost like a scout rogue. Somehow be like ex-military or something like that. Not too distant to Tor was he was an ex-merc, but be ex sort of imperial military. Has these sort of scouting techniques and then I would have had so many ways to bring it in to attach it to the story that unfolded.
I could see that character fitting in like right after where we ended because you could very easily in that case say that they were one of the people that we met working for the Sparrow.
Yeah, if we were to do it, say we look at it from the point of view of like picking up from where we left it, yeah, that worked really well. I was more thinking like if we picked it up from the beginning again.
Okay.
If we picked it up from the beginning again and did the same adventure, then I'd still do scout. I think I would have it so that it gives you that with the soldier background would give you a bit more ability to interact with the many military figures that you met throughout the adventure. Though that may be just because it's a bit having a bit of knowledge about it going because we've already played it. But I think the rogue would fit in with the party well, and I could have lots of fun being sneaky. Which was definitely a thing that you guys became quite fond of.
Yes. I think it's just one of those things that starts to happen when you realise how good to pass without a trace is. But you went into that really well. Like you gave us once you clocked that we'd used that and we'd enjoyed it. You then created opportunities to be covert.
Yes. Oh, mostly I just didn't put anything in the way of preventing that. I knew like it was going to be a thing, so I just go, all right, I'm not going to say no to you. Like we talked about stuff like this before, where we say that if a player has an ability, let them use it.
Give them moments to shine.
Give them moments to shine. Maybe sometimes if it gets to a point where it's becoming a bit over the top, and they're becoming maybe too heavily reliant upon it, and it's becoming a bit of a what's the phrase, like a one note,
crutch.
A bit of a crutch, yeah, as well. They're just becoming that they are just the pass without a trace character. You might want to find ways to get around it. I have a bit of a thing right now that's but I feel like it's a little slightly different, I guess. Is that I know you have this current immunity essentially to charm right now. So I have to work around. I can't throw anything charmy at you, but by not throwing charm at you means that I'm not letting you use that necklace. But then like
You,
charm is such a big part of like so many spells that I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna if I just I'm not changing entire stat blocks and things way monsters work just to get around that. I'm just gonna let him have the win with the fact that he stole it off the corpse of a dead orc drug lord.
offer me something nice for it.
Oh,
You know what Fitz
I know
wants.
what you want, and I am not giving you that until you earn it. Um,
Offer him something else nice for it.
a nice hat.
The thing you offered him for it last time was not an item that he would use. So
I don't remember what I offered for it last time, to be honest.
that fancy dragon crossbow.
Okay, yeah.
That
Well,
wasn't for
that
him.
was
So he
mostly
was like,
because the thing that you want, the dragon crossbow, is like of the same value or like same
oh no,
rarity.
yeah, no
That's all it
argument there.
was. Yeah.
Fully understand that absolutely, but Fitz would have never given up an
Oh, I
item of
didn't
his own
expect you to be
so that
honest.
somebody else could get it.
I don't think you
Uh,
ever. I don't really expect you to ever give it up. It's too strong and too good an item. If it doesn't stay in your hands, it goes to one of the other party members. But got a few minutes to your. We'll give you a few minutes. Come on, yeah. Your desert campaign. What character are you going to play in that?
so yeah, so that campaign was a kind of a domain of dread as well. I accidentally made before I knew what it was. Floating island, lots of sand, um, very little water. Only came from 5 places around the world, the small world. I actually would probably use a character that I've used in a short campaign. I would probably redesign them to be a little bit more good rather than a raiding orc. So I would downgrade the ranger from a full orc to maybe a half orc. Um, maybe use the same ranger, maybe go beastmaster, or
It
whatever
was
the
Drake
other.
Warden, weren't you?
Yeah, he was a Drake Warden, but he used a crocodile.
Mm.
But I quite liked that, so maybe I would stay with that. I would definitely reskin the character or retheme the character,
Mm.
different backstory. But I think the class would fit really well into that campaign. There was a band, like the first kind of settlement they went to, called Cry, was had with one of the larger mercenary presences other than the capital cities, because it was like a central trading point that was out in the desert away from like the 2 main cities that were separated by a large mountain range. And they were led by an orc called the Grey Bastard, which is just a nod to a book that I really liked about half orcs a long time ago. And perhaps I'd have them working for him initially, going with the party back because that was their first destination, so he could have been returning to that destination with the party, but then obviously end up as one of the party members and get drawn into the adventure and so forth and so on. I would definitely go with a survivalist vibe, with whatever class I picked, even if it wasn't ranger, purely because I like to create characters that are really part of the world that they're going to be in.
Yeah.
It's not something that all of my players did, but I think some of them did it really well. But again, that's more something that I have fun with, and not
Mm.
everybody's cup of tea.
It's also something that not every player has that knowledge when they're creating their characters. They don't know the world well enough before they create a
That's
character.
true. That's true. We definitely, that was definitely my first DMing campaign experience. We definitely didn't have a session 0. I didn't even know they existed at that point. This is definitely 4 or 5 years ago at this point. But I still had a good chat with like each of my players and said, this is what it's going to be. This is kind of the world it's going to be in. Obviously, they still didn't have my knowledge, and to be fair, some of my knowledge that I have now on that world, I didn't have back then. So
Mhm.
It's definitely one of those sorts of scenarios. But I think I would feel the Ranger vibe very well. Although I played Narakis a bit as a crossbow guy towards, well, a lot as a crossbow guy towards the end. Um, I still really do actually want to play a ranger at some point, somebody who uses a longbow. Again, as well, there's an aspect of it's my comfort area because rangers, in the way they work at a base level, are very similar to warlocks. You've got Eldritch Blast or a longbow or a crossbow, whatever. You've got Hex and you've got Hunter's Mark. Very similar, sort of baseline situations there. So it would be somewhat of a comfort zone and something I know I would still get enjoyment from. So yeah, that's what I do there.
Cool. Well, that gives people more insight into how we create characters, a little more in the world we've played in, and gives everyone some ideas of what sort of stuff they can play in their own games. Because you feel free to use these ideas, and they're not particularly fantastically unique. We haven't spent a lot of time. It's all improv. We came up with it off the top of our heads.
Yep.
So they're not the most well thought out things, but nonetheless, I think shows you how just a tiny little bit of quick thought can just create a character. And then some of the things that you should think about when you are creating your characters. We'll end it there this week. So that has been another episode of the Awkwardly Big Dice podcast with your host, myself, Dan, and Rob.
Hello.
Yes, hello. We will see you next week, hopefully. Depending on a few things, I might be moving. So well, I am moving, but whether or not it interrupts the flow of things, I don't know yet. We will see. Maybe. Regardless, we'll see you soon. We'll see you next time for another episode of the podcast. Check out all our social medias to keep up to date with our shorts and reels and these different things. And if there's information on whether or not there will be a next episode, I'm sure I'll post something. We thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Be a good chap. Be a friend.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And I hope all your dice roll 20s. Bye.
Bye.